Hello everyone. Thank you everybody for your kind words in the last video. I'm actually fairly surprised at the number of people who are still subscribed and actually clicked on the video very quickly, even though I haven't uploaded in a long time. So it's just really cool that you guys have stuck around, so thanks for that. So in this video, this is a couple days old already, but they posted some of the details as to how they are planning on redesigning the 3 characters that they listed during the 5th anniversary show. And as mentioned before, this is indeed a popular vote between Varna, Imelda, and Feraquea. So I'm just going to jump in and talk about what they wrote down here. So I'm going to start with Feraquea just because, let's be honest here, she has the lowest chance of winning out of these 3. At the end of the day, it is a popularity contest, and Feraquea was always one of the less popular SRs, and she's going up against 2 of the more popular SRs, so not looking too good for Feraquea fans, unfortunately. And as far as the dev notes go here, I mean, it really just sounds like they're planning on making Feraquea accept better. It looks like they're planning on sticking with her role where she displaces enemy units or changes enemy unit types and then does single target damage. They also talked about adding some kind of thing that makes her stronger every time somebody dies, which is not an uncommon effect. We've had that quite a few times. You know, a lot of the crossover characters had that, Yusuke, Rin, and Gintoki all had something like that. But yeah, Feraquea always kind of had a unique playstyle to her, so I can understand why they decided not to stray too far from that design philosophy. You just need to make it stronger and she'll have kind of an interesting niche. So next is Varna. So the thing about Varna, in my opinion, she is still really good. Obviously, if you have a bunch of buffed up 6-star SSR units, there's no real reason to be using her anymore, in PvP at least. But she is just a really great unit for newcomers, not only for PvE stuff, but just if they want to break into PvP, she is just really useful. And the dev notes they have here basically said they want to make her better at her support abilities, which makes sense. That's the main reason most people use her. They specify here that they want to give her some kind of selection skill that changes effects based on ally faction, soldier type, and gender. That last one I'm a little bit unsure about because the Chinese term for gender can technically be translated just as a generic word for type. But that specific term, I think they are referring to gender, mostly because they already specified soldier type earlier in the sentence, so I don't think there's really anything else to say there. They're going to keep her as a flyer, and they want to increase her mobility and command effects to put pressure on the enemy. I don't exactly know what they mean by that. I don't know if they're just saying that as a turn of phrase, or if they have some kind of specific effect in mind. But yeah, this is kind of a slight shift in how people use Varna, because the thing about Varna was that she fit very well into AoE boxes. Obviously because her talent boosted AoE damage. She has mass attack in a pinch if you really need that. But she was also just a pretty strong AoE attacker herself with pretty decent range. And because of the low cooldowns, she can fire AoEs off like 3 times in a row without really any cooldowns. Assuming you didn't need her to bring mass attack, obviously. But if they decide to shift her into a more support-focused unit, that would mean they need to add some kind of skill that is in competition with mass attack. Either that or they're intending for you to not bring her AoE attacks at all and just have her in a full support kit. I don't think that's totally likely given that her 3C is still an attack. Although I suppose that's one way they could buff her. They could just give her a passive that makes her 3C also do mobility down or something like that. But yeah, I'm just speculating at this point. Honestly, I don't think it would take very much for Varna to be really good again. Like I said, she's still pretty good. So the last one we have here is Imelda. The way they are describing it here, it sounds like she would be the one that would be most significantly changed from her original design. Basically, it sounds like they want to focus a lot on her individual combat ability while also enhancing her buffing skills. So they write down here that they want to make her a swordsman type unit that gets slowly stronger as she fights more. And she'll also have a powerful command aura, basically, that makes her ally stronger while she's in the thick of battle. Now, technically this isn't that far off her original design because she does have a damage boost, and earlier on into the game's life cycle she was better at being kind of that mixed unit that could do damage and also buff and heal at the same time. But as time passed, people kind of focused more on her support abilities, especially with her 3C being the whip. Them wanting to enhance her combat ability sounds cool, but it's one of those things that I think is the most at risk of being a buff that ends up being not very useful. So they do actually say they want her to be a swordsman here. They technically didn't say that she's an infantry, but that is the most logical assumption to make. So I'm just thinking of all kinds of problems this design philosophy could run into, which is mainly low mobility and her lack of survivability. The mobility aspect I think is self-explanatory, and the thing about survivability is that she doesn't really have any tanky soldier choices. And Imelda herself is obviously a pretty frail unit, so they would need to add some kind of defense or damage reduction. effect to make sure that she can survive enemy attacks. You can have low mobility or you can have low bulk, but you can't really have both. That would be terrible. And this is on top of the design philosophy that they're laying out here, which is that she will get stronger slowly over time, which is already kind of a bad idea. I mean, there's a couple units that get stronger or need to build up their strength over time. The extreme end is obviously Oboro, but typically units that do that are pretty niche, and you have to play in a very specific way to have them be useful. Like for example, people who play Oboro usually very slow tank push style boxes so they can protect Oboro while he's charging up. Just from these design notes, it just sounds like there's kind of a contradiction in how she's being designed. It just sounds like the worst of all worlds. You got low mobility, you don't know how bulky she's going to be, and she needs to charge up throughout the fight. Those are qualities that aren't as bad in PvE settings when you have to fight bosses and stuff. But for PvP, I don't know. The only situation I can imagine that working is if you are a tank push player and you need an aura style character. So essentially you would be playing her like a stat stick like Lamford or something. But I don't think the devs are unaware of this, obviously, because they know how to create good units. So this will be interesting to see, assuming Imelda wins, obviously. So yeah, just a quick video talking about the 3 units that are up for the vote right now. I should note that these overhauls sound pretty comprehensive and they don't sound that different than how SP overhauls work. So I'm actually still not sure whether this is supposed to be an SP voting campaign or this is something different entirely. But I guess we'll know a few months down the road. That's all I got for you guys in this video. See you guys next time.